Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Side Voices of Belonging podcast. It's been a year, but we're happy to be back now. um, so we're really excited for our episode today. Should I talk about queerness? I'm Anjali. My pronouns are she, her, and I'm from the Bay Area.
And I'm Madhu. My pronouns have been updated. They're they, them. I'm from Northern Virginia. And for those of you who are new, Sci Voices of Belonging aims to create positive LGBTQIA plus representation within the Sci community, exemplify that there is no need to choose between identity and faith, and increase awareness of LGBTQIA plus identities and related topics through education. And we're not affiliated with any larger organization.
So today we're joined by our first guest.
Woo!
So here we have Nirali. She's from the UK and is a cardiology specialist pharmacist, an advanced clinical practitioner, and a university lecturer. Within the PSI organization, she has held many roles from Center Youth Coordinator to National Young Adult Coordinator for the UK. With a passion for service to humanity, she continues to support others who face injustices based on race, religion, sexuality, and more. Welcome, Nirali.
Hello, thank you very much for having me on here. My pronouns are she, her as well. So thank you very much for having me, and it's really nice to meet you guys finally.
Yeah, same here. I think this has been a long time coming. It's nice to have a third voice. It's not just me and Anjali talking at each other over and over again. So like Anjali mentioned, the topic that we'll be discussing today is talking to your community and family about queerness and, our experiences, your experiences with that. And yeah, I guess my first question is, what was your first experience discussing the LGBTQ community with others? Like, what was that experience like?
So I would say that, especially in the SCI organization, right? As a national young adult coordinator, one of my roles was to kind of tap into how the young adults were feeling and the kind of barriers that they were facing, and seeing obviously how the SCI organization can help with that. So at the end of every kind of regional meeting that we had, I would always say, look, if anybody wants to stay on at the end of the meeting and have a bit of a one-to-one, then let's have a chat. And so many young adults would stay on at the end of it. And the number one issue that a lot of people had was, I am not sure about my sexuality, or I am experiencing feelings that actually we don't talk about very much in the organization, and I don't know how to navigate them. And the number one question was, will Swami still love me? Which was really, actually, for me, I thought to myself, how, like, where have we gone wrong, where if people think that God doesn't love you anymore if you love differently to what society expects of you. And the number one thing I said was, Swami will love you no matter what. It doesn't matter who you love, it really doesn't. So when I was talking to the young adults, it was about making sure that they felt it was okay to talk to me, to talk to others, at least their peers, about how they were feeling, so that they knew that they weren't going to be facing anything discriminatory. Now, when it comes to the elders, that was a whole different barrel of fish, to be honest with you. I remember, taking it to various elders and saying, I think that we probably need to have a conversation about how we talk about LGBTQ, because what we don't want to happen is young adults not feeling welcome in their centers because they're afraid about how they express themselves in the center. And I'll be honest with you, I wasn't really met with much open-mindedness about it. I recall somebody saying to me, "Oh, I don't know about this LGBT ABCD business," and you're like, "Really? Wow!" Like, just wow. And it just goes to show how much there is that outdated thinking and stuff. But it also got me thinking about, our elders back in the day, right? When they were young, this, like, LGBTQ wasn't accepted. And I'm thinking to myself, how many of these uncles and aunties are probably low-key undercover LGBTQ? And is this why they like try to push people away from it because it's not been their experience, right? So so when I'm talking to other people about it, those are the things that are running through my mind. And for the young adults out here now, at least they can feel some kind of kinship with other young adults because they're the future at the end of the day. And if they know that they feel safe within the young adults wing, then they know that they can express themselves, right? And it's been so nice to see those young adults come together and be a pillar of support for each other. That's been the most beautiful experience that they've actually supported each other through their journey and been like, actually, I've made a milestone. I remember one of the brothers telling me he realized that he was gay in Prashanti, like he's there crying in front of Swami, being like, Swami, is this okay? Swami, is this okay? Swami, please give me a sign that it's all okay. And he got his sign from Swami, to say that it's okay, like don't worry about it, type of thing. Because Swami accepts everybody. And I think that that is something in that all levels of the organization really need to open their arms to and just accept. It's not going anywhere.
Yeah, totally agree. I think, first of all, I want to like commend you or say that it's really awesome that as a leader or like an officer in the organization that your what is the right word? Constituents, like your the members of the organization that you were leading, the YA wing, like that they felt comfortable enough to come to you and talk about that is actually like incredible because I mean, I think from personal experience, I would never have not to say that the people who were in leadership were inherently like unapproachable or whatever, but I think the overall culture, at least in the US, like and at least in region two, like I would never have like first of all the YA reps are kind of they're part of a bigger like committee, so they seem a little removed from the regular members in the first place, and then there's no way that I would have talked about my sexuality with them, let alone like I'm I need to find a job. Like there's no way that I would have talked about anything in my personal life to them unless like they were a good friend or something. So I think it's really cool that like you have cultivated that kind of relationship or you had whenever you were an officer. I don't know if you still are, but it's that's really cool to hear. And and of course those people that came to you are probably so grateful that you were in that position and that you were available to them. Um, but then second part is that a lot of what you said is a very common experience, I think. Like, um, like me and Anjali have been in a position where we have had the ability and we've felt agency enough to reach out to our leadership and talk to them about, whatever problems we're having as representatives of the queer community in the Psi org. And, it's been a lot of
Yeah,
lip service, but no action. And I think that, yes, like you said, there is a lot of like camaraderie and like, peer-to-peer support within the YA circles. I mean, it's not universal, but definitely if you can surround yourself with people that are allies or are queer themselves, but it becomes hard personally for me, it becomes hard when like I feel like I can only get support from a certain type of person and like the organization or like the codified part of my community is not like receptive. And I think that's the piece where talking about queerness, especially in the Psi community, like it being received well is the most difficult part. Well, obviously, being able to talk about it is quite a lift, but then it being received in a way that is productive is also difficult.
I would agree with that. And I think from everything that you said, I think the hardest thing that the young adults found is like, how do they marry their relationship as their sexuality and their religion? And the one thing that I always said was, who you love doesn't determine your love for God. So it really doesn't matter. You love God, great. You love somebody who's the same gender as you, great. The two don't intertwine at all. Those two things can be true at the same time, and there's nothing wrong with it at all, right? The biggest thing was them to have that acceptance at that center level. They wanted to make sure that when they're walking into their center, then that they're not going to get looks, that they're not going to get an auntie or an uncle saying something to them, or them not feeling comfortable. Because the irony is, right, let's this is the irony of it, right? You go to your center, boys and girls are separate, you sit separately, right? Boys and girls are separate. And the point, let's think about this, right? The point of the boys and girls being separate is so that you can focus on on your spirituality rather than the opposite sex, right? Okay. Now, it doesn't it doesn't really fly when you're attracted to the same sex, right? You're attracted to the same gender. So actually, it's a really good way to hone in on your spirituality as well, more than anything else. It is a really good way of honing in on your spirituality. Um, and I think people tend to forget that. And I think also, having boys and girls separate has never stopped boys and girls interacting anyway. Has it?
No.
No.
Yeah.
It's a moot thing if you ask me. It's a moot point, but yeah.
Oh yeah, I don't know if you've seen all of our content, but I am constantly talking about gender separation, how it's, I'm gonna be nice here, how it's ridiculous. But yes, totally see your point about like Swami and sexuality not being mutually exclusive. Like they exist in this exact same experience. Like, how can you remove attraction and love from spirituality? Like that doesn't make sense. It's all part of the human experience. It's all part of lived experience too. Like everybody in the center is getting married and having kids. Like how do you think they did that? Because they like them.
But this
Well,
is
I
the
think,
thing,
oh,
right? Sorry, go ahead.
no, you go ahead.
I was gonna say, like, the funny thing is, and this is a conversation that I had with one of the elders. They think that love is between a husband and a wife. So so when they see a same-sex couple on the TV, for example, they turn around and said to me, which one is the husband and which one is the wife? And I'm like, I can't believe that they just fell into that stereotype. And I'm just like, well, they're both girls, so they're both wives, or they're both boys, so they're both husbands. Like there is no husband and wife type of thing. Um, so that was an interesting thing to have to explain. And then also about babies, where do babies come from? That was a different, again, conversation about how same-sex couples can have children as well. But it's because it comes down to education. That education isn't there because that exposure has not been there either. So when I speak to some of the elders, they're like, no, 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 I didn't grow up like that. I don't know anything about that. But actually, if you look at history, especially if you look at Indian history, actually we have transgender individuals that are literally all throughout history. There is nothing there that suggests that being LGBTQ was a bad thing. It is only actually after, when we had Western influences, that it was perceived as a bad thing. You look back at I think it was the Romans, I think it was, they actually expressed their manliness by being able to show love towards another man. Like these are aspects which are actually history, like real history, So, and it's just because we're now in this day and age where we've been asked to live a certain way, be a certain way. This is how society expects us to be. These are societal expectations rather than a human experience, and what we are meant to experience as humans as well, what is supposed to be widely accepted. So it's almost understanding our history and how we've come to the point where we have.
Definitely, definitely. And I think one thing you brought up that's really important here is just that people don't have education, they also don't have exposure. And I think part of the reason is because like it's like a circular issue here, right? Where okay, well people aren't out, so there's no exposure because just like people, like a lot of people in this like elder generation probably just like don't have friends that are out or married to someone of the same gender or out as trans, and they just don't know anyone. So it's this big, scary thing to them. But then the issue is because it's this big, scary thing for them, then they're not going to accept other people, right? So then those people don't want to come out. And it's this circular issue where you keep having less representation because people are scared. But then also that feeds into the same issue where, okay, well, now there's no representation. So people aren't accepting or there's less education. So I think we have to break that cycle somehow, at least my
Definitely.
opinion. But yeah.
Definitely. And the other funny thing is like I like aunties who I've grown up with and their kids who I've grown up with. Their kids are part of the LGBTQ community. But then if, say for example, I ask my mom whether they know that their friend's child is LGBTQ. They're like no, we don't talk about it. Like so the aunties and uncles are not talking about it to each other either, even though their own kids are LGBTQ. It's kept out of the center because of respect. The ijat part of it. The respect, because of the standing in society. They think that you're not going to get the opportunities, that you would normally get if you were straight. What has straightness, queerness got to do with your ability to do a task or to be an office bearer or anything like that? It has no bearing on it whatsoever. So if anybody is discriminating against you and think that you can't do a role because you're LGBTQ, then I would like to see the evidence that suggests that if you are from the LGBTQ community, then your ability to carry out a task is compromised, because that makes no sense. There is no evidence. Simple as.
That's definitely true. And I think it brings up something that I think about where like, okay, these elders who are saying this are not coming from a place of like hatred. Like some of
No.
them are, but most of them I think are coming from a place of like they actually genuinely want what's best for us. And like because of that, they're saying like, oh, I don't want to talk about it because there's this like shame that comes with being LGBTQ, and they're scared that that's going to affect like their kids or their friends' kids or whoever it is. And I think that like obviously that's like a problematic, again, this is like feeding into that cycle of like lack of representation and people not talking about it and all of that. But it's like it makes me feel better that it's not coming from a place of like evil. It's coming from a
Yeah.
place of like, okay, we're trying. But I feel like in a lot of ways it's like not trying in a productive way, but they are trying, but it's like not very productive.
They are trying. Like, they want us to see us succeed. And to my previous point, it's because they haven't realized how the world has actually moved on, because they haven't had that exposure. Like, they haven't seen that actually LGBTQ is absolutely normal. It's there on the TV, it's there written in the books, it's all there. It's just because within the organization, especially, you're in like a sphere in the organization, and it's like as if um it's like separate from the world, which in some ways is a good thing, right? Because it keeps you focused on spirituality, service, etc., etc., etc. But in some ways, especially with topics like LGBTQ, it means that you're so far away from what the truth in the real world is, that what ends up happening is exactly what you said, which is, they want to see you succeed, so they're trying to protect you, but it's not protection really, because they haven't realized that the world's sort of moved on and it's actually okay and there's nothing wrong with it.
Yeah. I think the word that comes to mind when you talk about the organization like that is insular.
Yes, that's the
Like
word I
it's
was looking for.
very it's very, I think we've spoken about this before too. It's very like just by the nature of how Swami created, or how I should say the organization has propagated itself from Swami's idea, is that, you know, we are we are loving and serving all, but we are not distracted, if that makes sense. And that like that anti-distraction mindset has devolved a little bit, and it's turned into anti-new, anti novelty. Like we're not gonna try to learn anything new, and because it's working so well, it has worked so well, then we'll just continue doing that. Obviously, I don't think it's a conscious decision to like, okay, this is how we're gonna do it, and we're not gonna accept anything new. I think it's just like confirmation bias over and over again. Like everything is flowing nicely, nobody's having problems, so they think. And the people who do have problems self-select out, and so their sample size, like their population, continues to confirm the same bias, and that leads to very like a compounded like I don't know how to say it, homogeneity,
Right.
homogeneousness. Like everyone thinks the same, and everyone acts the same, and everyone does the same stuff, behaviors. And my question to you there is, as an officer and as a person who like wants there to be more representation and more exposure, how do you reconcile understanding that and I'm kind of straying away from the questions we have written down, but how do you reconcile knowing or observing the organization to be this way, and then your, at least I think your moral responsibility to make center or make the organization a place that is more welcoming to queer people, if that makes
So
sense.
yeah, that makes sense, and I'm glad you asked this question because it was going to be probably the next thing I was going to say anyway, which is it goes back to what the purpose of the organization is, right? So we have to think about what is the purpose of the organization, right? Which is to realize our innate divinity within us, right? That's the tagline for the organization. We're here to help you to realize your innate divinity. That's the purpose of the organization. How we do that is through the service wing, devotional wing, etc., etc. How does you being able to be who you are fit into being able to realize your innate divinity? That's the question, right? So if you're not able to accept all parts of yourself and that rawness of yourself, and you can't be honest with yourself about who you are, how can you expect to accept yourself on a deeper level if you can't accept yourself on this plane, on this level in the world? You have to go through those different levels of acceptance to get to the core of who you are. So
Right.
when I think about how can I make the, if the whole purpose of the organization is to realize your innate divinity, then my number one goal is to make sure you firstly realize who you are as a person on every single level of your being. So that means the worldly level, the next level up, our five sheets that we have to realize who we are on all of those different levels. So so again, it comes down to, do you know what your character is? Do you know what your principles are? Do you know what your morals are as well? Those are the what makes up your character. That is how you realize who you are, right? Realizing your character is one thing, and your morals are inherently tied to you understanding your innate divinity. So where does queerness actually fit into this as well? Well, a lot of your character is going to be shaped by who you accept love from and who you give love to as well, right? And obviously we acknowledge that there are different kinds of love as well. There is the love that you share with your family, with your friends, but also the love that you share with somebody who is supposed to be regarded as your spiritual partner. Now again, a lot of people think that when you love someone, it's that worldly kind of love. Now, if I was to ask my sister and brother-in-law that they love each other, okay, but how do you regard yourselves on a spiritual level? They say to me that they are each other's spiritual partners. Yeah. So why is it? Then this is why the queerness part is important. You have to be able to acknowledge that the person that you love is also the person who is your spiritual partner. You're meant to help each other grow, right? If you are untrue to yourself about who you love, how can you expect to then get to that deeper level of who you are and realize your innate divinity if you don't have the right partner in person by you to go on that spiritual journey, right? So, this is how I try to explain why having that openness about being queer is so important. Having that acceptance from others is important as well. We do have couples that come, but they only come once in a while, and they do it very undercover. And I wish that they could just be open about who they are. They should be able to bring their kids along and things like that without having looks. And ultimately it's a celebration of love. And again, if you think about it on a deeper level, if you truly believe that we're all souls in a shell, why the hell does it matter who you love? Because we're all souls in a shell. That shell can change, but that soul stays the same. So when you're loving a soul, that's your soul partner, that's your journey, that's your spiritual partner. It does not matter what they look like on that outside. It's the fact that you found somebody that resonates on the same frequency as you, and that helps you to find your innate divinity. That's what I think.
Yeah, I think, I mean, nice monologue there. I think I totally agree with you about the, spirituality and finding a partner is inherent to being spiritual, and that has nothing to do with gender and like, queerness. I mean, it has everything to do with queerness, but you know what I mean. But I guess I'm curious because the topic is like, how do we talk about it? I think we have the queer community has an understanding. In order to be queer, you need to have, or in order to recognize that you're queer, you need to have an inherent understanding of yourself. I think it takes a lot of, at least my opinion is that I think it takes a lot of introspection and and loving yourself to a point where you're able to understand, especially in our communities, like South Asian communities, like you have to push past so many learned boundaries and learned shame in order to be comfortable, and or at least to recognize that you might be queer, you could be queer. Like that line of questioning takes so much effort. So once I think that everyone who is queer, who's questioning, is already having some sort of, they're they understand themselves in a certain way. How do you express that understanding to someone else? Because
I
when
think,
I was like if I when I was coming out to my parents for the first time, my mom, I came out on like in phases, but I found it so difficult to be able to find conviction in myself and then relay that to her because there was so much scope for doubt in return. Like there was so much scope for her being like, "Are you sure? Like you don't know yet. You're so young. Like that's a big deal. Like, your life is gonna become hard. All those typical things that you would expect." And I found it difficult to communicate like who I was.
yeah, yeah, I get what you say. There isn't an easy answer to this.
Mhm.
There isn't. Everybody comes out differently, and your story is going to be very similar to a lot of a lot of people's stories as well. I hear it. I've had a lot of young adults talk to me about it, and it varies person from person. And I've heard parents say to their children, I don't really care about who you love, to be honest with you. You're still my kid and I'm gonna stand by you. That's fine. I then you hear the other one, then you hear other parents that take it a step further say, okay, you're still my kid, things can change. Um, and you should have told me earlier because I would have prayed harder. Um, I've heard that one before. And I remember thinking, you can't pray the gay away. It doesn't really work that way. Um, so, I've heard those stories. I've also heard parents say, look, I'm not going to kick you out or anything like that. You are still my child, but just don't talk about it in the center. It's really difficult. It's a very, very difficult topic because you need acceptance and you need somebody on a higher level to actually open up that conversation. Like I've tried loads and loads of times to open up this conversation with elders and say, look, can we please talk about this? Because this does affect young adults. We can't just keep it within the young adults. It doesn't work that way. If you really want us to be part of the organization and part of the center, then we have to be able to talk about this openly because the young adults don't feel welcome at the center otherwise, and you're going to lose your young adults. And then you're going to say the same thing to me that you've been saying for the last 4 years, which is, where are all the youth gone? So there, I wish there was a simple answer to this, and there isn't a simple answer to it. And I think the answer will probably be, and I hate to say it, but it's probably true. Once the elders are sort of on their way out of the organization and we get the new wave, new generation of elders, if you like, coming through, I think that's when you'll have it, because actually that's where the representation is. And that goes back to the previous point, which is a lot of the elders may be undercover LGBTQ but never had the opportunity, and so they think that this is the way that it needs to be. Which again is a difficult point. The thing is, if you've got allies, if you've got people on your side, and this was the main thing. If I was alone as a national young adult coordinator, it would have been much more difficult for me to approach the elders in the committee to talk about it. But because I had three other people who were on my national YA committee, I could take them to the meeting with me and say, look, we believe this as a national YA committee, that this is what we need to talk about. Having that allyship and actually having the numbers there to say this is something worth talking about, I think that's where the power is as well. The difficulty is the elders being able to make the connection between the center and queerness. They haven't quite made that click yet. And I think that's why what we talked about before about the depths of understanding who you are to realize your innate ability is how they can then realize why it's important for us to talk about queerness and why it's important to be accepting. The difficulty they will have is, well, you want us to talk about it, but how do you want us to fit this into, the different wings? Talk about it in your spiritual wing. Have a study circle on it. Why can't you have a study circle on it? Why can't you turn around? Why can't you say, okay, today we're going to talk about acceptance. What does acceptance look like? What are the different levels of acceptance? And I'm guaranteed a lot of people will be like, okay, let's have a look at disability, for example. That's like the main one that people tend to go to. And well, why actually can't we talk about queerness? A lot of the time they will try to shut it down, but actually, if you take two or three people along with you to that study circle, that's going to open up a lot of conversation. Be like, well, actually, we are going to labor this point about queerness and LGBTQ representation in the center, and actually why acceptance is so important. And do you have any questions about it? Asking the elders directly, do you have any questions? What do you not understand about being queer? What do you not understand about LGBTQ? Because guaranteed they would have gone to India, yeah? They would have seen loads of transgender individuals, without a doubt. Without a doubt. There is a very long history. So why can't we embrace it? Why can't we have a study circle discussion about it? We can have a study circle within the YAs. That's not a problem. That's signed off because elders don't look at that. We look at that. Why can't the elders have the same? No reason why they can't. study circles a great opportunity to be able to talk about it. And actually, I think it's also on the elders to be brave and talk to their friends who they know are actually like their friends whose kids are LGBTQ as well, and just be brave and be like, hey, do you want to talk about it? Because we don't. They don't talk about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, you bring up some really good points here. I really liked the idea of like bringing multiple people to the conversation. I feel like maybe like that's the case in the UK, and Mother, you can speak to the case in the US, but I don't feel like YAs in the US are ready for this. In the sense of
Really?
like, I don't know, the ones I've met. Okay, not all of them, but many. Like I feel like people are like accepting to a point, but they wouldn't be accepting enough to like some people, of course, but not like a general sentiment among YAs where I feel like even in a YA study circle, if I brought this up, which it has been brought up, um, things just get a little quiet, you know? Like it's just like people don't know what to say. It's kind of awkward. They start, I remember one time I was in a YA study circle and like this was brought up, and I think I like came out, I guess, because I think a lot of people didn't know. So I guess it was coming out in this context. And people just looked at me like so confused. Like they were just so surprised. And then the rest of the conversation was about like God knows what. I super didn't like it. I was like, y'all are just talking random things to each other. And it actually makes no sense about like and then my favorite part was people kept going like this topic instead of just saying like LGBTQ or whatever. They would just be like, oh, this topic. And these are like YAs. Like it's not like elders I had this problem with. I mean, obviously, I'm sure I would too, but I didn't feel like I would have the same support. Like, there are a few individuals I know who I'm sure like would,
Mhm.
but like, it wasn't like resounding support. It was like, oh, like, yeah, like, yeah, like we should be more inclusive, but like not really coming up with anything tangible. And I think Molly and I have experienced this on other occasions, right? Where it's just kind of like, okay, like people are supportive to a point where they'll be like, oh, yeah, I agree that like we should respect queer people. And then that's all, like, there's no more action that they'll take beyond that. There's no more like vocalizing that they'll do beyond that. Like, a lot of people just have kind of like that limit, like a ceiling of like what I think is enough advocacy or like advocacy might even be the wrong word. I don't know. But then there's like some limit to like how much they're going to do about it. And a lot of people I think are just scared of like pushback from the organization. I've met a lot of YAs who are like, oh, I don't want to like be too involved because like what if then like, I'm a coordinator, I'm something and like I'm worried that that's going to like affect my role or like affect the way like people look at me or the way like things are. Like I don't want to get political. I feel like I don't know, Madhu, maybe you can comment more on this, but that's kind of like that's kind of the sentiments I've been getting
Wait,
throughout the last few years.
I have a couple of questions for you.
Yeah.
Firstly, what did you want to see from them? Like when you came out, what did you want to see from them? What did you want to experience?
I think okay, so the context for this was like we were talking about a scenario in which like someone came out and people were being like disrespectful basically. Like I don't exactly remember the scenario, but I think what like I honestly just came out because I was like, dude, this is a great time to do it. But it was like, oh, like I was just like, yeah, like I've been in this scenario a bunch of times and like this is what I think, right? And I think my issue was basically people were just like, I don't want to be like they were talking over me because that's wrong. Because that, like, I mean, everyone's entitled to have their opinion, but like, I just don't think their opinion makes sense. Like, I was just like, well, you don't even know. Like, you cannot give me like what this feels like. Like, you cannot tell me what this feels like because you haven't been through this experience. Maybe some of them are queer and like didn't say it. Okay, that's fine. But like, I'm quite sure that there were a few people who I'm like, I know you're straight. Okay, I know you're gonna say this from what they've told me. Like, they've told me this. Okay, so and then I was just like, okay, I don't
Um,
know. It seems like, why are you really like saying that you know something that you don't? Or like, I just feel like people are only supportive to a point. And then after that point, it's kind of like, this seems too political for me. I'm good.
the thing that bugs me is that is like coordinators saying, "Oh, I don't want to show too much support because I don't want to jeopardize my position as a coordinator." Your job as a coordinator is not to serve yourself. Your job as a coordinator is to be representative of your community, right? Of the YAs that you represent, of the community that you represent. You're not there to serve yourself. You're not there to serve your ego. You're there to serve others. So the fact that they're like, "Oh, this is going to sabotage X, Y, Z," who gives, who cares about whether it sabotages your position, because it matters about whether you are on the side of right or wrong. That's what it is. It does not matter what position you hold. That's absolute bonkers, and this is why this politicism comes into place. Pol- when it comes to politics, and we know that there's politics in the organization, we know that there shouldn't be. It is a very simple thing, which is what you say right or wrong? Are you hurting somebody? Are you harming somebody? Like, these are the questions that need to be asked, not is my position at risk? Those people who say their position as risk as coordinators shouldn't be coordinators in the first place.
Yeah, that you would just annihilate our entire American American officers. But going back to like what Anjali was saying about like YAs, like even peer-to-peer relationships not being exactly supportive. I think that I have supportive friends. They just happen to be in the Psi organization. It's not because the Psi organization has cultivated like, loving and caring human beings that that's why they're supportive. No, they're supportive because they grew up in liberal America. And the Psi Center, they have done their best against Psi Center to continue to be an ally, actually. I think the Psi Center, I cannot speak for every Psi Center, but I would say that in my experience, that YAs who have grown up in the Psi Center, like, were born into it or like started going to SSC at a young age, like, I don't know, there's like some indoctrination that makes them turn their brain off when they walk into a center, or the fact that they are Psi devotees absolves them of any other like moral and political social responsibility. And I don't know. I'm not perfect, right? Like I probably have so many things that I am ignorant to, but there's one thing is that I'm gonna open my mouth. And nobody seems to be doing that, or they might feel it on the inside, but there's like so much fear involved with being being like vocal that it holds them back. And there have been countless times where I have said something and like publicly in a study circle or in a Q&A session or something. And no, but I'm the only person talking that is like supporting queerness and the queer community and like, injustice and minorities and everything. And I know the people around me, like I know them and I know that they would agree with me if we weren't in this setting. And then once we leave that room, they're all like, "Oh yeah, great job, Madhu. Like that was great. That was so good. I loved how you said that." I was like, "Okay, you couldn't say anything? Like why am I the only one talking?"
This is about perception, isn't it? The acceptance of others within the center, that they don't want to be seen as supporting something which is other than what other people think. However, if everybody if everybody was to actually say what they believe, they would probably see that they're all in the same boat, that they all agree on the
Yeah.
same thing, rather than rather than not, which is I'm can I just say I'm really sorry that you guys have experienced this. Like, honestly, like, I'm so shocked to I'm really really shocked to hear this, because like I've always thought of like America as being like, you have that freedom to sort of express yourself. You guys are like forward thinking, you see all of these things. And um I'm a bit, I'll be really honest, I'm a bit taken aback, because I honestly did think that you guys have such like just America in general have got like so many queer icons and stuff like that. Like our England captain is dating your former Miss USA. I mean, come on.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? It's the one two gay icons
Yeah,
on
I
either
was
side
gonna
of the
say,
pond.
I think UK has a lot too.
Yeah.
But
True.
I
I think
think
that this
that,
is not, oh yeah,
oh,
go ahead.
I was gonna say, I don't think it's like Psy people are very homogenous, like ethnically, and we're all brown. And the brownness in America is very interesting. I think, I mean, I can't talk like generally because I don't know. Someone could get a PhD in this and explain it to me, please. But like, I have seen, it's my understanding that Indian Americans, like, brown people in America, are very conservative in their mindset. And I think that has a lot more to do, like that affects the what we're talking about more so than being American. It's
Hmm.
more like being Indian in America is an interesting pocket that makes people more inclined to traditional values.
So do you think that that conservatism is about being accepted in a place where you wouldn't otherwise feel accepted, and therefore having another layer of intersectionality of where you're also queer? So you're brown, you're queer, you're female, right? Therefore you've got more things against you to prevent your success.
Yeah, I think I definitely agree with that in the sense of like what one of the reasons why it's like people are so fearful.
Yeah.
Like, and I would say that like I really haven't experienced that much discrimination in, especially in California. It's like so chill. But like when
Right.
you talk about like the size center, things become like less.
Science Center is just another world,
It's
isn't
just,
it?
yeah, it's like that whole little microcosm. It's like not, yeah. But like in California, like in the Bay Area, it's like so chill. Like so chill. Like it's like so surprising. Like coming from the South, going there, it's like crazy. But in like the best way. But
Yeah,
yeah, I
I was
wouldn't say
originally from North Carolina,
yeah.
Do you know
which
what I
is
think?
the South.
I think that it is the responsibility of like your national YAU zone coordinator, whatever you guys have over there, to filter down and actually have conversations with their coordinators as well. Like it has to be that approach. It has to be both ends, top down and from the bottom up. Do you know what I mean? And I hate having hierarchy. I've always hated hierarchy, if I'm being honest with you, which is probably why like I was a very unconventional choice for a national young adult coordinator, if I'm being honest with you, because I just didn't do things the way that they were meant to be done. You know, but I've always been the type of the type where um say for example we've done an event, yeah. I will say, okay guys, let's have feedback about the event. How do you think it went? Blah 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 blah. Okay, great. How do you guys think you all did? Right, okay, good, and then I'll give my feedback. I'll say, guys, how do you think I did? Is there anything that I could have done as an improvement, as like, helping out with that? Because you have to have humility, you have to be humble, you have to be able to have accountability, and to be able to also kind of reflect upon yourself. How else can you accurately represent your community if you don't get feedback from them as well? And that's why it's really important to then go to your YAs and say, hey guys, what kinds of things are you guys struggling with? Like tell me, like, honestly, because if you guys don't, then we're just all going to suffer and there's going to be no progress, right? How do you guys feel about all of this? And having those open conversations with your office bearers within your team is so vitally important. And then they have those same conversations with their YCs, like their center coordinators, and then it filters down when they have their conversations with their young adults as well. And it's not about agreeing on something. It's about planting the seed to be able to have a conversation about things then further on. If you know how people are responding to these um um to like a multitude of issues, right? Not just LGBTQ, but a multitude of things, then you know how you can then approach the next step. What's the next phase of then going forward? And I think that's what worked with me. Like, although I have never met that YA in Region 7 or whatever it was, I never saw them face to face, but they sent me a WhatsApp message saying, Nirali, can I talk to you? I think I'm part of the LGBTQ community and I don't know how to handle it. Like, do you know what I mean? It enables people to then feel like as if they are part of the community. And I think there is strength in numbers. There is strength in numbers. And I think, yeah, your office bearers and coordinators need to take a bit of accountability and open up that perceived kind of worms, which probably isn't a kind of worms.
Yeah, it's still so surprising to me that people are messaging you. Like that's actually just like crazy to me because people message us, but that's very different than messaging like their national YA coordinator, or that's just very surprising. And I'm very, very impressed that you were able to like cultivate an environment that's like so inclusive and open and like people didn't feel like, because I just like could never imagine going to any center officer who I didn't know, like especially like even the ones I know, but especially someone I didn't know and be like, yeah, I expect them to like respond with acceptance. Like I just super wouldn't expect them to respond with acceptance, but I might expect them to respond with some level of acceptance, but not like, wow, I
Not
really accept you.
investment.
Yeah, like not trying that hard. I just can't imagine it. I don't know. That's amazing.
I just think it's about being open though, isn't it? I would tell all my wives like we always used to do this thing like, okay, tell me a little bit about yourself. You get the standard, I play tabla, I play harmonium, I do this, I do that. I'm like, no, 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 no. I don't want to know about all of that. Tell me what your hobbies are. Like, what do you like to watch? What do you like to play? I like Disney and Marvel, and I'm a complete geek. And I'm a mix between Sheldon and Leonard from Big Bang Theory. Like that is me. Right? I'm having those sorts of conversations, and then they're like, "Oh, okay, yeah." So I like playing video games, I like doing this, I like doing that. Oh, okay, cool. I can't play video games to save my life, but that sounds really interesting. Your hand-eye coordination must be fantastic. No wonder you're so good at music. Making those little connections and things like that. I think the thing is about humanizing people. Like when you're in a position, people think like as if you are in a position like let's put you on a pedestal and stuff. It's like no, we're all humans just trying to do our best at the end of the day, and like yeah, you just gotta. I think you just gotta humanize it. That's the part that's missing, the human part of it, which is so ironic because of what Swami actually teaches us, right? Like we're humans. Like just trying to wrap my head around it is, and I feel like as if sometimes people have to put on like this front, put on the white clothes, you go to the center, all of a sudden your personality has changed. I know, like it just that's a costume that they've put on, right? But you shouldn't be afraid of who you are. And and I know for a fact, right? Like there are particular people, like Swami told, you should stay out of the center. There are things which are bigger than the center. The center gives you the tools to be able to be successful and to navigate life and making sure that you never forget the five human values and making sure that you appreciate everybody, making sure you don't have discriminatory behavior towards others and those sorts of things. Um, Absolutely, it does. But the center shouldn't confine you to just the center. It's giving you the tools so you can spread Swami's message to everybody, right? That's what it's supposed to do. So why are we preaching to the choir? That's
Yeah.
that's what it is. But there is a benefit. This is why Swami says, head in the forest, hands in society, right?
Yeah.
That's why Swami says all this, and there is this disconnect between the behaviors that are expected within the center and then what you're doing outside. Like how many people do we know? Like Swami says, don't drink, don't eat meat. On a Sunday, how many people will not drink and not eat meat? But happen on a Monday, they'll go out, eat meat, and have a drink. There is a hypocrisy here that we don't read that some. I'm not saying everybody. There are some people that don't carry forward what's in the center to then to real life, but they aren't two separate things. They are one and the same. So what you experience on the outside should be what you experience in the center and vice versa. And that's why we have to be able to cultivate that sameness of whatever's in the center outside and vice versa, because that's how you are able to challenge your mind. There's no point. Swami's even said this. There's no point in go like teaching you all of this stuff and going to a forest and then sitting there and be like, I'm detached from everything. True detachment comes from when you're actually living in the world and you can actually be detached from everything that's coming at you.
So if you want to hear more of the three of us talking, check out our next episode.